Order. This is our budget workshop. And Kat, you want to do Pledge of Allegiance for us?
Sure.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call, please.
Director Horvath.
Here.
Director Hetherington.
Here.
Director Rolfe.
Here.
Director Diamond.
Here.
Teresa will be late.
She will be late. Okay, do we have any special orders of business on this meeting? Seeing none, do we have any modifications of agenda for this meeting? Do we have any public comment for this meeting? All right, seeing none, let's get into the budget workshop. Rob, do you want to start us off?
Thank you, David. I will start us off, and then I'll turn it over to Liza Smith, our Director of Finance and Administration. In front of you, you have a package that we've updated for this meeting. Hopefully everybody has updated paper copies from the original material that was made available for this meeting. Liza has had a chance to work and refine that a little more. The presentation you saw today is slightly different than the board packet you had leading up to this meeting. So I again refer to the current documents you should have in front of you here today. And so the slides will be a little different also as a presentation style. We're here today in our first budget workshop, and we wanted to walk through, if we go maybe the table of contents in the next slide, there we go, in your printed materials as well. These are the slides that we'd like to walk through today, starting with just a strategic plan overview of how we connect our strategic plan that was just approved earlier this year to our future budget plan for 2026. We'll talk about budget drivers for 26. We'll do some comparison of this year's budget, the forecast, how we're going to end this year, and then what next year is shaping up to be. We'll talk about some historical trends with our revenue and expenses here at the airport district, property tax collection, how much of that we're getting. We'll walk through those different historical slides that we've talked about in past budget cycles to show you kind of over time how we're trending for various areas for the airport district. And then we'll talk more about our reserve study and how we're implementing that in our budget plan for 2026, our planned capital expenditures as well. Liza will wrap a bow around all that and talk about our equity once we do our in and out for our operating year for the plan, our reserve to maintain the facilities, our capital investments for new infrastructure here, and what that means for our overall equity for the organization here, kind of our money in the bank. Is that getting bigger? Is it getting smaller, et cetera? And of course, last in the packet you have there is a budget reference guide, kind of providing some more detail around all the different components of the budget line items themselves that build our forecasted budget for next year, 2026. So with that as an overview, are there any questions from the board of directors of what we're going to talk about here today that I can address up front, or Liza can address? Okay. Great. Well, let's start with our first slide here. Kind of the high end, the top view down of 2026. We have a multiple-year strategic plan that the board approved. There were some 2026 priorities in that plan as far as goals. I pulled those out in Word format and summarized them here in these 4 focus areas that our strategic plan is focused around. On the top left side there is economic responsibility, really some of the driving parts behind developing these budget workshops, we've met, Liza and I have met in person with each individual board member, walking through the detailed budget plan for next year to address questions or concerns individually you have. This is our first opportunity to talk about how we're tying our strategic initiatives to our rough budget plan for 2026. And that's part of our budget strategic plan, is to have these series of meetings and workshops with the board of directors and with the public to address areas of concern or redirect budget focuses to make sure we're achieving your direction as a board of directors here.
question. Do you want
Yes.
questions as we go through it, or let you do your whole thing and then?
I'm happy to take questions as I go. I think as Liza gets into that, I'll defer to her. There are some areas that probably make sense for her to get through a whole slide before questions, but I'm happy to take questions as I'm going.
My only question on this was, we have update PI 311, and this idea of updating PI 311 or having a new number. And I kind of think it should be a new number, or evaluate something other than update. I think PI 311, start over, and
Okay.
that would be my thought.
Yeah, I think that would meet with I believe the general consensus or direction the board was providing the strategic plan. I think I just used the exact language that was in the strategic plan, but I think definitely take away, I think the collective direction was, let's start over again with PI 311 with the new number and new verbiage that describes. Right now, that's planned, in our work plan for next year is planned for the first quarter of 2026. But thank you, Mary, for that. That is my takeaway as well, is that we're kind of starting over with that, because so much has changed in that document. To try to continue to wordsmith it might not be the best approach to addressing what you all are trying to achieve in strategic initiatives compared to the old language that's in there.
Agreed. There's your third.
Explore mutual support agreements. Right now, this area deals with administration areas for, right now we're working with the town of Truckee around communication. With their communication efforts they have, how we can partner with them to use their outlets. The principal area we're working with them on is they just overhauled their website to be ADA compliant with a firm that we're interested in using also. It was a project for 2025. We did not get done. We're looking to partner with them going forward this next year to use their skills and expertise that updating their website with that same contractor to help assist us as a principal area. They also have some Spanish language translations capacity that we don't have. Is an area that I'd like to explore more, to reach out to more of our community here that we just haven't got to in the past. And so I think there's opportunity for us to partner with what they are doing really excellently with their team and staff there to help build upon what we have here in place in the way staff, limited staff around communications, and some contractors that we're currently working with. Of course, maintain reserves is a piece that we're going to talk about in more detail. The budget plan for 2026 does have, per board policy, we do maintain a $2 million reserve level for reserves as a minimum balance in reserves, or our equity for the airport. We definitely are still achieving that. So those are the key items around economic responsibility. Of
I have
course.
one more question for that.
Yes, ma'am.
The Explore Mutual Support Agreements, how does that save us money? I mean, if we're just going to go with the contractor that they used, how's that different? I mean, what's different about that?
So
That's
rather than hiring additional full-time staff that would be operating around communications, adding FTEs to our,
Yeah.
we haven't replaced some FTEs, and instead having us partner with the communications staff at the town of Truckee to help provide that oversight for that website upgrade for us, rather than having full-time staff on our part doing some of that.
Oh,
We would
I see what you're
contract on an
saying.
hourly basis with the town's communications staff
Okay,
to
okay.
do some of that work, or to do Spanish language translation. They have staff that does that already.
Okay.
So rather than us having another contract with a contractor, we'd use an existing resource that is already in place at the town and try to fully utilize their full-time staff that are doing some of these functions already. That they have some capacity. We're working an hourly rate to do that.
Okay, that
So
makes sense.
that's how it helps us rather than
Okay.
hiring another full-time person. Right. The other two strategic initiatives that are listed at their water system we've talked about in the past year, kind of transitioning our water system that we have here, either to us properly maintaining it to the levels that it needs to be, or transition it to the Truckee Donner Public Utility District and maintain it. There's some more work around that still needs to be done. Solar studies is one of the initiatives we talked about in the strategic plan of exploring for next year. That's having some kind of solar field here at the airport, a number of acres, and some battery storage. And then the other strategic initiatives, the first line on there is, how do we want to build upon the existing wildfire mitigation, the scholarship programs, the other STEAM education programs that we have here, the STEAM trailer. Those are the strategic initiatives that you'll see broken out in line items in the strategic plan with some dollars around those as community benefit strategic initiatives. Over on the right, operational efficiencies, there are a number of areas that are around softwares that we utilize here. The focus on those, transitioning some of those, having a STEAM facility, continuing our hangar revitalization programs, with is upgrading lighting in hangars. This will be we're in our third year of hangar revitalization. We continue that into 2026, improving some flooring in some, replacing electrical outlets, upgrading those. Again, facility maintenance focus, which is, we've shifted some of the focus of our maintenance, our operations staff to more maintenance in order to continue the robust maintenance of our existing facilities rather than building new facilities. We want to get as much life out of this infrastructure as we can, so we're renewing our focus around the staffing and the programmatics of actually doing that work on a consistent methodology, and not deferring maintenance or ignoring maintenance in order to favor operations.
A
Thank you,
question
Laura.
on
Yeah.
hangars.
Yes.
In the revitalization, and we're getting a rent study coming back.
Yes.
Which is great. But, the previous rent study was a T hangar's a T hangar as a T hangar, and a exec hangar is an exec, and they all had the same base rate. And we have been talking about different quality. And I like that idea of different rates within the T hangar world.
Right.
Because, we have some that asphalt floors, some with concrete floors. I agree with all electrical upgrades, because right now it's all, electric cords, and it's not good. And so the lighting and the electrical, but in terms of affordability for many people, keeping some that may not necessarily, maybe we keep one hangar row that is not, or two hangar rows that are not as upgraded to make it more affordable for some people.
All right.
That's a thought that I have.
No, it's a great thought. We currently have an engagement with Mead and Hunt to do our hangar rent study for the airfield, and part of the guidance we gave to them to do the rent study this time, they're doing it, we had a different firm do it last time several years ago, was the exact criteria you were just talking about, Mary. And that is not only what is the market rate for aircraft hangars based on size, but what is the market rate and what's the variability based on quality of the hangar.
Right.
And so they're building that into the rent study to give us some flexibility in how we set rates in the future, or how we recommend rates. We expect we're shooting for the December board meeting to have that rent study concluded on the air side, to make recommendations to the board of directors about not only are we charging appropriate market rates for the aircraft hangars here, but is there variability in how we charge those rates based on quality of the hangar. So
Right.
absolutely, we have some old hangars we haven't upgraded much at all because of a number of reasons. Those might justify a lower rent than something that we have upgraded the light, the roof, the flooring, the electrical, and it's a much different quality hangar, not just the size of it. So I think we are looking at that as one of the key variables in offering a different range of hangar rents.
Great.
Of course, we do have some folks that are in existing hangars. We do have a wait list. Some folks may, have some feedback, Kat has some great feedback on this. What's our plan if somebody wants to switch hangars from the existing, more expensive perhaps T hangar to a cheaper T hangar? We'll certainly, as we roll out these new rates next year, probably February or March timeframe, given proper notifications, we'll start establishing a wait list around people who want, and we do give priorities, people who want to move internally with existing infrastructure. So if somebody wants to switch from a more expensive T hangar potentially to a more inexpensive one, then we'll begin looking at those opportunities internally
Great.
as well.
Because I don't want to get to a place where it becomes so unaffordable for our smaller piston pilots that then they all leave, and then there's a push to build more big hangars,
Right.
which drives us into a jetport situation, and I don't want to head that way.
Let me jump down to the bottom left here now. Natural Resource Conservation, the Climate Transformation Alliance programs. We have a strategic planning meeting actually tomorrow to look at what that is going to be set in direction for the next several years. Certainly we'll want to build upon that. We'll bring back those suggestions to the Board of Directors from the Climate Transformation Alliance programs. We have recent studies around scope 1 through 3, continuing monitoring those different scope areas and looking for areas that we can improve upon is something we want to continue to do, and have a limited amount of money to maintain our level of visibility on our scope 1 through 3 emissions from an outside third-party person who provides that information for us. We'll continue that next year and look for opportunities to continue to improve in areas that present themselves. Although we do not have, as per board direction, we don't have defined upon, we must reach, net zero by a certain date. We haven't defined that. So there's no timeline we're pursuing on those scope reductions, but just maintaining a consistent level of making sure we understand our inventory of greenhouse gases and look for opportunities to reduce them that make sense for us with our resources we have available. We have fleet electrification on there. There's no plan actually in the 26 budget to replace any of our vehicles, but that is something we are thinking about going forward. Lands management prioritization, there is quite a bit of airfield and non-airfield money program to continue our lands management. Of course, we do have the assistance of a CAL FIRE grant to address some of it in Wattle Ranch, which is very helpful for the bottom line for us. On social responsibility, building upon our second meeting that we're going to have Friday night this week with the Fly Quiet program, is our community outreach meeting night, of what systems, there's a little bit of money built in there to expand upon the existing systems that we have here, although we have not fully built this out yet for 26 budget. I think based on this week's meeting and our further research of this next month before our second budget workshop, we have some homework to do on what the cost of some of those systems are, whether they're, I don't know if we need to go to NOMS yet in 26, but at least some of the simulated noise systems that we could be more public facing on and what the cost of those are, to show the noise signatures of every aircraft flying in and out of here so the public can see that as well, not just us. Maybe something that we build into the second phase of the budget process here. Just strengthening our communication programs fit with our previous conversations of partnering with the town to use existing resources in the public sector and paying for those on an hourly rate to build upon our communications channels to the community of things that we are doing, all the great work that is happening here across those different areas, those different initiatives you see listed there, from Fly Safe to Fly Quiet to Fly SAF and our wildfire mitigation. And if we build upon the solar program for next year, that as well. So I'll stop there as far as, just reminding us what the direction of 26 priorities are as we're around goals around the strategic plan, and then turn it over to Liza to walk into what does that mean from a dollar budget perspective in each line item of the budget. And Liza's been with us just a little over a month now, and I think you've found in individual meetings, and you'll find today that she has her arms around our budget pretty succinctly and has a great presentation here for you today to talk about 2026 draft budget.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you all for your time. A little green? Is that better? Thank you for your time in the office last week. That was super helpful, and I think we've captured any directives in this version, and apologize for the change in what you have in front of you versus what we sent out Friday. I don't think the numbers changed. If they did, very minimal. It's just more presentation and tidying things up. So All right, so this first slide is to talk about basically the budget drivers. You can hit the plus like you're,
Thank you.
there's a couple that are still a little
My
bit
eyes aren't
small.
quite that good to see that far, yeah.
So this sort of just outlines the big ticket items, right? Like, hey, our revenues are going up $1 million, why? So I wanted just to sort of point out the bigger items. We're not going through each individual line because some of them are immaterial, they don't matter. But the ones that do stand out and make a difference, I wanted to just point out on this worksheet. So let's see, starting with revenues, we're looking, of course, at the fuel sales. And this, again, we've talked about this a little bit, but we did change the accounting method this year. So when you look at the graphs, it's going to look, revenues going up, and then all of a sudden it went way down. And it's just due to the change in how the accounting was done for the SAF fuel. We do have, in one of the graphs, we have a cost of goods sold sort of graph that outlines that actual net effect of that change a little bit better. So overall, if you take out the gross dollars year over year, looking at your fuel sales, it's actually going up. We're budgeting to go up this year $137,000. The next big driver for revenues is the hangar lease revenue. We are budgeting to increase that. We're estimating 20%, and that's an estimate going into effect in March, and that's based on the rent study. We don't have that back, of course, so this is just an estimate. But we went ahead and threw in a 20% increase starting on 3/1 across across all hangars. Let's see. The next one is the JSX/Surf Air lease revenue. This year in '25, we're showing Surf Air lease revenues, and next year it's changing to JSX. And of course, this is not finalized yet, but that's another increase to your revenues of about 50 grand, just that one line item alone. Let's see, other leases that are not hangar leases, the rent study is being done on that as well. We are estimating a 2% CPI on all those leases going into all the full year next year, with the exception of the lift building over there, that's starting at 5%. Their leases renewing at the end of July. So that's showing the net effect of that estimate for next year. The next larger chunk was a change for interest income in investments. We're doing a couple of things there. We're moving, you have Wells Fargo accounts, just sort of in basic accounts, and we just switched those over recently to be in interest-bearing. They're called special government advance accounts or something like that at Wells Fargo. So they're earning a little bit of interest right now, but I'm also hoping to move those into sweep accounts to get a higher yield on our monies that, is just hanging out until we pay bills. So that's part of that increase for interest income. And then the other part is I'm going to move money to CalClass as often and as quickly as I can when it comes in. Property tax, we get big chunks that we don't, we pay out over time. So I'll move that as soon as I get it, and their rates are, quite a bit better than what's in Wells Fargo. So we're just moving money a little bit quicker, and the CalClass is very easy to move money in and out of. So we'll be utilizing that a lot more going forward into next year.
Question?
Oh, sorry.
Did you want to go through the slides or ask, how do you want to do this? You want to finish your slide or?
Free to ask.
I was just wondering about the Wells Fargo accounts. Do we have more than is FDIC insured in those accounts?
You do, yes. You have historically.
Okay.
They've been set up on accounts to earn earnings credits. That's why there was no interest being earned. And I think that was done a little while ago when interest was terrible, and so you were just paying for your fees. And part of the fee is to be an over FDIC limit. There is a fee charged with that. So, but you haven't been seeing those fees because your interest has offset those fees. So now we'll be earning interest, we'll be sweeping out any monies over whatever our peg balance is. It'll probably be less than that.
Josh?
Yeah, just a thing on public agency bank accounts, that there's a different insurance program than FDIC that we're subject to. The bank actually has to have collateral to cover our deposits. And so at our checking account amounts, even if they're higher than FDIC limits, are subject to some additional security requirements that make them safer, just as a heads up.
In this context of interest account, I mean, a lot of the money that is sitting in those interest accounts is property tax money. So, I mean, I'm assuming, because, you know, we're talking airfield and property tax. So are those savings accounts bifurcated?
They are.
So when we're seeing a net increase of 147,000, some of that is property tax interest, and some of that is airfield revenue interest.
Correct. That would be correct.
That's a question I'm going to get into later, is in terms of how we're doing this accounting and more clearly of property tax and airside money.
Okay.
I'll bring it up later. But
Yeah,
just clarify.
those are roll up. They are tracked by individual account that is segregated.
Okay.
Liza, can I just ask you really quickly? And I think the answer to this is yes. I'm just confirming that the increase in staff is with an expectation of JSX purchases?
That's a portion of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see, so gain loss on sale of disposal, that's the disposal of a cat grader. We're proposing in some later slides to purchase a new one, and this is the disposal of that old one. And then, let's see, state operating grants, this is the CAL FIRE state grant. This is a 5-year project. We're putting in $100,000 more than was in the budget for this year. Or, not in the budget, I'm sorry, in the forecast for this year. I think we're forecasting $12,000 is all for this year. So we're putting in $100,000 more than that next year. And then the miscellaneous is kind of the rest of everything that didn't really jump out at me. It's additional revenues from landing fees, ramp fees, JSX services, parking, and then the regular jet fuel increase. So that brings us to an increase in overall revenue of about just over 1.1 million. And then looking to the expenses, and again, this is, you know, sort of big ticket items. We are increasing expenses over forecast by about $600,000, $620,000. This is excluding the community benefit or strategic initiative dollars that are in the budget. Let's see, so part of that, 177,000 of that is wage, tax, and employee benefit. There, again, the CalPERS, the 457, and the medical benefits, those are budgeted in the 26 budget based on 100% participation in all of those. That's not usually how it ends up, but we don't know that, so we're budgeting based on everybody's gonna take all the medical that they need, everybody's gonna do the 100% match and so forth. Yeah.
I have a question in this category. You got 2% CPI adjustment, comma, COLA adjustment. I'm assuming that those are not both happening.
Those are two different adjustments, yeah, so the COLA, and
Cost of living.
Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but the COLA is a base increase for everyone, right?
Yeah, I think it's referring to, when it comes to employee compensation, we budget for two things. One is the COLA increase, which is a set percentage, that's 2% is what we're planning for. And then there's a merit increase, which is a budget pool of 2% in that as well. But we're not planning for CPI plus COLA plus merit, no. So that's not, if that answers your question, Teresa.
Well, I think last year we went to, or we talked about changing the index that employees get, tying it to the leases, so that we're using the same.
Yeah.
So which one are we using?
So we tied our leases to the same one we use for the employees.
Which is CPI?
So we did that last year, or maybe it was earlier this year, as part of our minimum standards rent kind of changes. So that did go into effect, so we should be using the same standard for everybody now.
So is it CPI?
It's CPI, right?
So it should say 2% merit, correct?
It's 2% CPI, 2% merit is what the budgeted plan is.
Okay. And then I wanted to, on the,
Did I say that right? Sorry, Liza?
I believe you did,
Yeah,
so
okay.
I can change that.
getting to the detail, and I'm sure we will, but remind me why we have no overtime, vacation, or holiday or sick budgeted? I know you told me, but I forgot.
Well, the budget wage amount includes all of that. So if I make $20,000, my budget in the wage will show $20,000. But as I go throughout the year, if I take a vacation day, my wage will then be expensed at $1,000, and then my vacation will be expensed at
Okay,
$50.
that makes sense to me. What about overtime?
We have very little overtime. I don't have any of that budgeted for next year. That is not in the wage number. You're right.
Okay. That's it on that category.
Yeah, we may refine the overtime just a little bit as we get into the second phase of this budget plan. It hasn't traditionally been a big number, but there's probably some there that we do get with the shifts, the way they run on the opposite side of the house particularly. I don't think it's material.
Yeah, right. This year I'm forecasting about $5,700 for overtime is
Yeah,
all.
okay.
So it's pretty minimal.
4759.
Yeah, there you go.
I have a question about CalPERS, which I don't know if it'll be here or more in the specific in terms of if we're making those extra payments or not, but what your anticipation is.
Yeah. That's shown later in the equity
Okay.
section. Yeah.
Okay. We'll get there.
It doesn't show up here, but it
Doesn't
does
show
show
up
later
here.
in the equity page that we'll get to, that shows a plan to consistently do a drawdown for our obligations.
But why doesn't it show here? I mean, it's 177.
Remember when we talked about balance sheet versus the P&L, profit and loss? Remember?
Okay,
It'll show up on the asset side. It's not an expense.
okay.
So the money comes out of the checking account, but it goes to the balance sheet, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we
Correct.
have a big liability.
So we will cover that, but we're drawing it against our equity.
Okay,
But to explain, I know why it's confusing. You don't see it here. Where is it?
yeah.
That's kind of why we did the equity sheet, because you don't see things that actually are happening. So hopefully that will help.
This isn't the whole story, right?
It's part of it. Let's see. Oh, and then we're decreasing, there was an expense this year for recruiting. Hopefully, next year we'll have very low turnover. We won't have anything like that again. Property insurance, we got a rate decrease on that in this current year. And we're assuming the rate decrease we got this year, it'll be an estimate of about a 7% increase overall property liability, everything next year, starting in the middle of the year. So that's how that comes down, but then it goes back up just a little bit. And then interest expense, this is another driver. We have the new loan for the A2 apron. So there's the executive hangar loan interest here, and then there is the A2 loan interest in this account, and the A2 loan increased that expense by $266,000 for next year.
So this is a question for Rob, more or less. The interest on the hangar loan, does that get factored into the rent study for the exec hangars? Or
For
should
the
it?
current rent study being
should it
done,
be?
it's a great question. I've got to do some more investigating on that. It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that yet.
Okay, because it's like 170, 180.
Yeah, I believe it's based on market, not on what the market rates are, not on what our costs were to construct things.
But you're evaluating, trying to find out.
I'm
if we
evaluating
can.
whether or not that should be a factor, additional factor. It's kind of like we're looking at a CAM charge for hangars also, which is snow removal charge in the hangar rows, which we don't currently charge, but we do. And so we're looking at that as something else we're not capturing fully in the hangar rents.
Because philosophically, it seems to me that it should be inclusive, somewhat including that, considering. I don't know. I'm looking at the other board members.
Yeah, I think that's the way the Clear Capital building was structured. And the way the rents were set for that was based on the construction cost and rent plus rents, so.
I'm looking at my other
It-
board
it
members
has-
to see if
yeah.
there's consensus.
It has happened in the past, but yeah.
to consider that in assigning rents.
I would support that if it's legal to do, it makes sense to me.
And there's two ways we can do the leases, right? We can do a lease with a CAM charge, or we can do triple net, which means the actual expense. Their pro rata share of the actual taxes, snow removal, et cetera. I don't know which way they are. I'm assuming they're not triple net.
Not right now,
So
not currently.
that's the way you answer that question, Mary, is
Well-
to change them.
Well, that's the way you would do it in terms of like a business on the field, like, you know.
It's,
But in terms of a hangar rent, how would you do triple net? I mean, the point being, we spent $7 million to build those hangars, and the interest cost on them is $180,000 a year for X number more years.
it's not typically that. Typically, it's pro rata share of snow removal, taxes, garbage, maintenance, not our cost to construct.
But that's what I'm saying is, I think it makes sense if it's legal to do that, that it's price elasticity. It's also like, who is it serving and can they afford to pay that?
Okay, but
Whereas-
the argument would be when the loan is gone, are you going to reduce the rents? Probably not.
So, you know, I'm just,
It's not customary.
how do you know it's not customary what's being done at other airports
Oh, I
or
don't know
other
about
things?
airports.
You what?
I don't know about airports. I'm
Right.
talking in the real world.
Okay, so I'm just putting it out there to see if there is consensus by us to say, if in fact we can legally do that, why wouldn't we do that?
I don't think it's fair because we're not going to reduce the rents when the loan's paid off.
Well, we might, you know, that's a
We
future
won't be here,
board.
but
Right,
Although at that point in time, if another rent increase is considered based on market, then maybe that's factored in, that they're paid off at that point. But then you have.
Yeah, the primary driver on the air side, rents is market rates, particularly. There's some ability to discount that for aviation, but I'll look into that with our rent study firm and see what flexibility there is in
okay,
setting those based on different methodologies.
thank you.
All right, and then we have the miscellaneous of the change to expense of about 360 grand, and that's lots of things in there. There was an increase to legal based upon the fact that we may need to reach out for some legal help regarding if there's evictions or so forth based on the new plans for the hangar tenants and moving folks out if they're not flying and that type of thing. So we put a contingency in there. Director, the medical went up for directors, the medical insurance, communications, flight tracking, all that stuff. There's a lot of things that make up this difference of about 361 to make up for the expense increase overall. So that gives us a net change without the community benefit piece of about $560,000 overall increase to revenue, net revenue. And
noteworthy, I'm sure I'm not the only one that noticed, property tax is flat.
Yep.
Historically, it's been 5 to 10%.
Well, we also collected less than forecasted last year.
In Nevada County,
So our current forecast is flat. Liza's working on updated information. I think we're starting to get some feedback from the counties now. I think you just heard from Nevada County that there are forecasting an increase now. So I think we have some refining to do on our best guess for next 2026. Currently, it is flat though. We held it for the first draft. No increase.
that's what it looks like in here, and I did, just yesterday, I got a notification that information had gone to Kelly's email, not mine. So I got information from Nevada County, and it's a small increase. It was like 150 grand that they expect more than this year for Nevada County. Haven't heard from Placer. And then, so the community benefit, that's of course a big piece of the overall number. That's being increased over this year's forecast by about 2.6 million. I know that a lot of that's up for discussion. That's an increase due to the proposed options, air show, library, solar field, fire, additional fire mitigation, et cetera. So that's that slide. Excuse me. Just sort of overview of what's going on in the budget, the big pieces that are sticking out, driving what's happening on the next page here. So this next page is how we've built the entire budget worksheet. So it's looking at 2025 forecast against 2025 budget that was approved last year, and then comparing to this year's proposed 2026 budget. The 25 forecast, we've taken the actual profit and loss through at this point, through August, and plugged that in, and then we're taking budget numbers from September to December to build out the forecast. We've changed those numbers where we know, the budget numbers where we know something is gonna happen different than budget. But I'm sure there are things that forecast won't be perfect. That was sort of best estimate for the last few months of the year. So this page right here is an overview. So the page we just reviewed is kind of pieces of these numbers that I'm pointing out. This is why this is changing and so forth. And then this is not the detailed budget with every single line item in it. The very last 4 pages of the presentation give more detail. For instance, in this revenues FBO, if somebody's, well, what is in there? In the last 4 pages of this presentation, it outlines a little bit more. These are a few of the things that make up revenues FBO, this number. So we're not looking at the detail, but this is a summary overview, and then the last few pages give a little bit more insight into what's in each one of these categories.
So my eyes are drawn to the bottom line there. The net income line includes reserves and depreciation. So we haven't had reserves in the past years. If you look across just above that line item, reserve expenses, but we are forecasting that and building it in very specifically for 2026 to represent things that we are maintaining at the airport here, our focus on maintenance. So those are items that cost more than $5,000 a piece and last longer than 2 years, that we have a reserve study on. I know I've talked about this in the past. I've talked about this individually with directors, but I just want to highlight that we are capturing that on here now. And so when you look at the bottom net income number difference, you see the budget 25 is plus $1 million, and forecast is, pretty close on that. And then next year's is, now we're including the reserves in that, and we've increased significantly the community benefit portion potentially of the budget. And that's why all of a sudden we're looking negative on that final result of 1.5 million. Sorry, I'm squinting now. Of course, that's a lot of variability to the community benefit piece based on board direction, obviously.
And almost like 2/3 of the way down, it's showing operations net income 6.1 in our forecast this year against the budget of 6.6. So that's, that's operations taking out the community benefit expense, kind of to give you a clear view of operationally what's going on. And then the EBITDA is 3.6 forecast against the budget of 1.6. And so that's just kind of, hopefully will give you a little bit of a better idea of kind of the buckets and how they sit and how they look against the bottom line.
Happy to take questions. We have several more slides to get through. We have some historical slides. Want to look at kind of what the trends are over time for budgets and forecast, and take questions of how questions might have about how we're doing over time with our current draft budget for 26. And then we'll get into the 3 other components of the budget, which is reserves, capital, and then equity.
So this slide is historical revenues, and we added the bottom line there, the net FBO revenue, to paint the better picture like I was talking about of the FBO revenue. So if you track just the top one that says, it's like a dark blue, the fixed-based operation revenues, the trend is going up and then it's coming back down, and that's strictly based on change in accounting. So we added that black line in there and then the trend line on the black line. So our net FBO revenue continues to go in the same direction it's been going in. So this is all of your revenue trends over time.
Any questions on those or clarifications we can offer?
Yeah, so the dotted line on the top is the net FBO, the trend,
The trend on the top, yep.
and the orange one is what? Hangars?
It's the trend for hangar. I only threw those two in because the other ones aren't moving very much, so those were the only trend lines I added in. The other business leasing is pretty static, as well as the warehouse revenue.
So I've got a question just about that, the warehouse revenue and the other business. If we're looking all the way back to 2020, and we're not really seeing much of an increase on those, but my guess is when we look at the expense chart, we're going to see a substantial increase from 2020 on expenses. Are we considering that when we're setting rents for all of our leases?
And the other business leasing rental revenue line items, so those are non-aircraft hangars. That's our warehouse office building, rental cars, our airport office building, rental car, lift is in there currently. And then we have the variety of nonprofits and for-profits in the warehouse building. Most of those leases were multi-year leases that have been in place for some time that set the rate of increase for CPI and for the rent increases. So much of those we've been locked into for some time. Only a couple have come due recently. And when those come due, we look at a new rent study to set new rates. We're currently also doing another commercial business property rent study that should be done by this next round when we do our second budget workshop to set new market rates for all those other business lease rents. So I think there's an opportunity here to begin seeing some change there because certainly the market has changed. The other piece we're looking at is that CAM charge. We do charge those other facilities CAM. Those were pretty set in the past, and we have changed slightly how those CAM charges happen. Some of them were set historically in rent agreements that didn't fully capture all of our expenses. So as those expire, we have opportunities in the language of each of those leases. We are looking to improve those agreements to capture fully our cost and appropriate market-based rents. It's a long answer to your question, but we're aware of it and we're trying to address it within the best of our ability given existing lease language that has us a little boxed in on a lot of those.
I understand, thank you.
The biggest one expiring is the lift lease this next year, which has been, since that building was built, it's been in Clear Capital. It's a sublet from Clear Capital currently with the lift. It's our first opportunity to have a review of that particular rent, which is the largest rented space that we have and our largest revenue line item in other business leases. So that is an opportunity this next year. Currently, we have a 5% increase in that line item alone, not knowing what the market study will come back at.
So we don't have expenses associated with the lift on the historical expenses. I mean, we've got revenue, but not.
Let me hold the expense question for the next chart just for a second. If there's any other questions on the revenue charts.
Well, just, you do the fixed-based revenue for FBO, which is fuel, and then the net FBO is what you're trying to show because you've actually done the subtraction there.
Taking the cost of goods out, right. Which is a major accounting change. So it really looks, if you're only looking at revenue, it's just not showing any of the accurate picture. The net does show the accurate trend of how much hits the bottom line that we're using to run the operation to cover other expenses.
What do you associate the drop in '24 to?
For net,
Yeah, any thoughts?
that was the first year we implemented the full SAF transition to 100%.
24?
It was 24.
Interesting that we had that drop and now we're absolutely back on the trend that we were at before.
Our fuel sales were down that year in '24 compared to budget, and now they're exceeding our budget and our previous fuel. I know we don't have a chart in here about gallons sold, but we're projected, and I think we're already over 100,000 gallons for SAF Jet A. We were budgeted 500,000 gallons. We're on track to exceed that at this point for this year. And we are budgeting, I think, 501,000 gallons.
550.
551, thank you, yeah, for next year.
SAF makes airplanes go faster. People are liking it.
It makes the earth spin a little slower.
Kidding.
All right, so this next graph is again sort of on showing the trend of the airport operating revenue and expenses. So we're excluding in this property taxes, any grant revenue, any insurance proceeds, and community benefit. So this is, trying to just show airport operations. And it's revenue and expense. Thanks for putting this in it. This was my question to you in terms of the previous chart, looked like it was decreasing over time. But expenses are,
Yeah, without the exact numbers, it looks like we're maintaining a good separation between those. The expenses aren't growing exponentially beyond what our revenue is.
So that revenue, okay, yeah, so in 2020, that delta's like 4 million. And here in 2026 projected, we're talking 3.3 million. And the goal would be to tighten it even more? Or is the goal to increase it more?
There's not a specific strategic plan goal in that area, but certainly from a business operations perspective for the airport district, we try to maintain expenses to CPI growth or specifically directed requirements to improve in certain areas. Our revenue growth is driven, a lot of it fluctuates based on aircraft volume utilization of the airport and fuel sales. We don't have much control of that other than our fuel price that we set and the fees that we charge. We have increased the fees that we charge when we introduced a landing fee in 2022 that probably saw our airport revenues increase. And then we changed the nature of how we charge our ramp fee from a transient use fee to a ramp fee, and they introduced the landing fee.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next slide is property tax revenue. And again, this year we showed it static. We know a little bit of an increase will happen for Nevada County. I know that so far.
Yeah.
But this is, again, just showing trend year over
So
year.
we're actually getting to where we want to get.
So one change I just heard at the area managers meeting today is that the town of Truckee is under some mandate to review the housing, future building opportunities here. And there's potentially significant expansion beyond their 20-year plan of 700 plus units to potentially 700 plus 1,500 units in the future. So they are reviewing that. I think they're in a timeline to present back to the state what those opportunities are within the town. So if that comes to fruition and the actual build happens to a plan, you certainly would see these rates increase as more property tax would be collected through more construction within just the town itself in Nevada County.
Rob, I can do my own research on this, but this is a new mandate from the state on a per county
They are,
basis.
it is.
That's a huge shift from the 24.
It's massive, and then, so the town council's been talking about it, the management team's working on it. I would have to get the specifics of that information to be able to share with you of what that is,
From
but
700 units, because
it's significant.
yeah,
Yeah.
to 15. Wow.
Plus potentially 1,500, yeah,
Wow.
over 20 years.
All right, the next graph is showing historical expense trends. So we've broken it down into each sort of expense category. One, payroll, cost of goods sold, operating expenses, airport, operating expenses, community benefit, and repairs and maintenance. Cost of goods sold, again, that's a funky one this year because of the change for 25 forecast and 26, because of the change in how we're recording the revenue.
And the community benefit jump between 23 and 24 was when we started booking our, like the golf course and our lost revenue.
The most significant jump between those years is when we began to close out the 5,000 and below, and then the sponsorships, and then the agency partnership program, and switched to a strategic initiatives. Wildfire mitigation was the biggest jump starting in 24, was the most significant difference you see in those bars there in that blue bar. But we also started booking other things as well to community benefit that you were talking about, Teresa. Absolutely. The cost of the golf course, the land management outside the airfield. We are booking those all to community benefit as well.
In terms of, like the maintenance on the lift or the maintenance on the warehouse, where is that captured in here, the historical, where is that expensed?
I think the number would be captured in here would be operations and maintenance type of expense, O&M, routine maintenance. The reserve type maintenance is not being captured in these bar charts. It will be in the future in a separate chart that we'll start creating. It talks about reserve expense cost that'll show up on the equity slide we'll talk about here in a minute.
The cost of goods sold, you all got the explanation of that in the one-on-ones? Why it's so much lower?
That has to do with how the accounting method
Right.
for SAF, yeah. Yeah, the revenue's down, cost of goods sold is down.
So on the operating expenses airport, before 25, we were definitely in a more shallow upward trend. And then from 25, and then we're budgeting in 26 is, how do we?
$1 million more?
Yeah, how do we summarize that, and is this the start of a continuation of that trend? Is there anything in there that we're concerned is?
Yeah, that's a great question, David. I would say based on the timeline and focus of initiatives here is that we've made a concerted effort, I know since I've been here, to focus on maintenance, which fits with the board's direction to maintain the existing facility versus build new. So we have, as I mentioned earlier, reoriented part of our operations and maintenance staff towards maintenance. We have had a concerted effort to maintain the existing facilities. A lot of that is additional O&M cost, not necessarily labor costs. Or labor FTEs are the same in that area. We have just shifted them around for operations to focus more on maintenance. But the actual work getting done in the hangars on the airfield has grown significantly, absolutely. So that's in cost and actual results with helping maintain the facilities for a longer life.
And that O&M that you're talking about is in operating expenses airport?
It would be an operating expenses airport for the airside cost of maintaining things, not in a reserve maintenance way, an expensive or AIP way, but in a replacing cables and hangar doors.
So what's repair and maintenance expenses? Bottom line.
That's a great question. I think what I'm talking about is repair and maintenance. I didn't look at the,
Going down.
I didn't look at the last line.
Not
That's,
down from a few years ago.
Right.
yeah, that's sort of, I mean, from what,
So
from the
David's
budget.
talking about this, right? This number and this number is more than $1 million jump. These ones were higher back here and trending lower. And
Right.
this is higher than last year, but which is it?
Is there a chance they got swapped?
I would have to research that a little bit more. I think it's the way it's being booked and being shown here. I have to dig into that more with Liza to talk about how we're segregating those.
I can go back and do sort of a comparison. I didn't look at 24 in this process, actual, so I can do a comparison and get you that answer.
So the repair work that we had to do that the insurance company didn't cover, so it was like 3 million and change, is that out of reserve or is that out of here?
That was originally booked in repair and maintenance in the year it was done. Subsequently, a change in the audit process with our auditors to recharacterize that. So I don't know that those numbers have been changed here. It could be part of in which line they're reflected in. So that could be, I don't know. It could be part of, yes, it's a big number. It could be part of the different numbers in time here.
Okay.
I'll do a comparative and figure.
Pardon me?
I'll do a comparative history
Okay.
and figure that out.
And Liza, would it be, forgive me if this makes no sense from the accounting perspective, but when I see operating expenses, that to me says like daily operating expenses where I think of capital or one-time expenses or once every 10 or 15, 20 years kind of expenses as being different than that. In terms of like, if we took out all of that construction and all of the fixing of hangars and all that stuff, that we would see a number that is how much it costs us each day to run the airfield. I don't know if that's beneficial for others to see that, to see if there's a trend there that's abstracted from those like hangar repair or those big ticket items. Because you're right, we have made some infrastructure investments.
Yeah, as I think about this more, and I think about airport expenses there, I think I'm just trying to think about the biggest driver of that is beyond labor is just we have a tower. We just renegotiated a new tower contract that's more expensive than the previous. That's $1.1 million a year. We pay for ADSB. Those rates have continued to increase year after year. Those are probably the biggest drivers in that airport expense line item. But again, I think we need to go look at what those all are built in there.
Thank you.
I mean, if I sum them together, you know, is the jump not as great? It's still 4.9 to 5.6, yeah, even if I add them together. Yeah, good question.
I will report back. Okay, this is a graph that has historically been in your packet, so I just continued it into this one. It's just really showing the same information in a little bit of a different way. It's breaking out the revenue buckets and then total expense versus strategic initiative buckets. So it's just telling you your property tax revenue year over year and a change from prior year, grant revenue changes, all other revenue. And then it's looking at the community sponsorship or partnership or strategic initiatives against total operating expenses. So it's just sort of a different way to present the historical data in a graph form.
Can I just make a note? We've got 55 more minutes in this session. Based on what you know you're going to present, do you feel like we're on time? Or are we good?
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I had asked this question, but clarity, when we take state of California money, there are no conditions like when we take FAA money. I had asked Rob that, and just so we all know that.
Yeah, I'll pull up and share what those agreements are. It's not the same as the FAA type of agreements, right?
Okay, so this next one, sorry, this is Shrimpy.
Dang. I'll get it.
Electronics are safe.
Paperclip is a goner.
Paperclip is done.
Somebody coming in is gonna think I had an accident. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, thanks.
All right, this next slide is the backup for the $576,000 we're showing as replacement reserve expense. So you all did a comprehensive reserve study a couple of years ago, and that study looks out for the next 30 years at all your major airport components and what they are, what needs to be replaced, what needs to be repaired in major form over those next 30 years. It puts a price on each component and an inflator on each component related to cost of living adjustment. So we looked at that schedule, and it said in 2026, you need to replace or repair all of these things for this amount of money. So that's what column 3 is on this schedule, where it says 2026 scheduled. For instance, the first one, asphalt pavement, that study said you're going to have to replace or repair the concrete walkways for $7,000 in 2026. Well, Vince and his team, they looked through this study and said, I don't think we need to do that, or I think we do need to do that, or we need to do this instead. So this schedule shows what the reserve study said that we needed to do. The next column, actual 26 proposal, is what Vince and his team have said, this is what really needs to be done this year. And then for anything that was scheduled in 26, if they're not doing it now, what their proposal is when they think they're going to have to do that replacement or repair. So we walked into the reserve study for 26, and it said we needed to spend about $2 million for replacement reserve activities, either replacing things or fixing things or repairing things. And they whittled that down and made some changes, and he's proposing $576,000 for replacement reserve. I do want to note the fuel tanks. He had some folks come out and they looked at it, and we haven't seen the final proposal for what the dollar value for what needs to be done for those. So those are estimators in there, the 59 and the 270. Those are estimates. IT system, another thing to note, there are reserve dollars in there, and I think that's historically accurate, but nowadays, technology's so different and hardware's so different that it's really on an as-needed basis. A lot of things don't have to be reserved for. Mike did say the servers should need replacement this year, so we have an amount in there of $40,000. But we didn't put any amounts in there for workstations or mobile devices, anything like that. That's all operational at this point. And the two bottom ones, those are the cat grader. That is a new proposal to purchase through a lease purchase. The cost of that is $462,000, proposing a 5-year lease on that. And then the next amount is the cat loader, that we do have a lease purchase on that, and this is year 2 of 5, and those are the payment amounts for that. So it showed purchasing purchasing the grader in full in 26, so we just moved that, the $324,000 of the estimate that the reserve study had, it's actually $462, but since we're paying for it over 5 years, we plugged that amount in there for this year. Any questions on any of that?
kudos to Vince for being pretty conservative.
Active
with
management
this.
of our reserves, yes.
Yeah.
Instead of just handing a list, right?
I mean, some of these discrepancies are really pretty wide. You know, no, the recommendations, like a couple of them say, like the metal surfaces really don't need to be recoated till 35. I mean, that's a long time. Like, how do they come up with, why is there such a big difference between the study we had done and what Vince and his team are estimating?
The study took two approaches when they did it. It took the existing facility maintenance study that was done, and then they did a secondary hand-on, eyes-on the existing facilities. And the folks that did that study did it based on their experience with the subject area or the research associated with that. It's not all perfect, I would say. And so as those things come up as a reminder that something should be done, we go in and look at it to verify, does that surface need to be done? Can be deferred? And so there's some, I would say, more in-depth analysis that takes place the year ahead of things that need to be done. That's my rough generic explanation of why there's some differences there.
And do you expect that to happen every year, that they will do an assessment for
I think
27? and
from my
28?
experience, that does happen every year at other organizations that we've done reserve studies on. There's always a ideal plan, and then you modify from that plan. You typically always come in half or less than half of actual work that needs to be done from a plan.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, you know, if you keep putting it off, it's so much more expensive to, you know, the cost of
Of the whole system, I think some of these are components like for example, a hangar row. You'll see hangar, there'll be the roof, there'll be the doors, there'll be all the components of a hangar row. And you can replace those individual components over time, or you can keep putting them off as long as you can and replace the whole system at once, like the whole hangar row. And I think that's what we'll run into. And I don't have a good forecast of what that looks like, of what is hanging out there on 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years. That's like the next level of analysis. We're looking at it for the hangar rows themselves to be able to bring back to you still. We're still in that process of when is that year that a lot's coming due that we probably can't put off much longer. So it's a great question, Kat. I don't have a good answer of what the longer than the next couple of years forecast looks like for those big expenses for maintenance. But they'll be coming due, absolutely, right.
Any more questions on the reserves? Next slide is the capital projection for '26 based on the strategic plan initiatives. So going through here, bottom line first, we're looking to spend about $1.175 million on capital items. The first one is the website, new ADA compliant. That's a rollover from '25. That was on the '25 plan. It has not been done yet this year. The next one is a warehouse fire suppression system and code compliance upgrade. That was it's basically bringing the warehouse to code. It is not to code at this point, so that's the cost associated with that.
And that's just an estimate at this point. Those are not from bids or specifications drawn yet.
Let's see, ramp overhead lighting replacement. So this is an LED upgrade. There are 16 light poles. One, they went ahead and did as sort of a demo for free. So one has been replaced already. And this is the budget for the rest of the 15 to upgrade to LED lights on the ramps.
So these are the ones on the poles right out here on the ramp. We did replace the one by the closest to the fuel station here, self-serve station, as a test. The payoff of that is about 8 years is what the specs are from the contractor. the cost of maintenance, replacing bulbs and existing infrastructure. To replace it at all, it has about an 8-year return on your investment is what we're looking at for those 15 light posts. It also changed the nature of the light and how it's projected down and flying. We took a flight on the one test one we had at night, and you see it actually makes the ramp area of the airfield much brighter from the sky where you can see it. And certainly when in the ground below the lights, it's much brighter. But the ambient light around it for night skies is far reduced compared to the current bulbs that we're using in the current methodology of the lamps that are out there. So it's a win-win-win when we look at this as a system that we could replace to reduce our night sky pollution for light, improve the ROI in a few years, 8 years, on the maintenance of the existing infrastructure here, and improve the light quality that's on the ground at night here on the ramp spaces themselves.
Are those lights on all the time, or is that a time, there's this ancient history, but it was, one of the questions that had come up was that they would only come on during certain hours or if needed, and I'm just curious.
I'd have to look and see what the plan is for the future of those, whether they're on 20 all night long or just as needed.
Because we
motion
had a
type.
lot of complaints early on from
Right.
folks up on the ridge over there.
Yeah.
That's why we made the one switch. And there was this idea that, when there's no planes out there,
Right.
which is a significant part,
You don't need the light, right?
need to even have them on.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that's in your consideration of this.
Yeah, certainly we'll look at that, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. The idea is to reduce the light pollution associated with those ramp lights, and this does do that.
No, that's
When
great.
when they're on, right?
But it's also
Yeah.
the idea of when there's no planes, which is a lot of the time, why we wouldn't even want them on.
Is it possible to connect the ramp lighting to the pilot-controlled lighting that we use on the runways? That way a pilot,
I'm sure it's possible, but I don't know the practical of the functionality or cost or anything else, yeah.
Yeah.
and it would be on a timer, and if they were taxiing out, they could click, click, click to turn the ramp lights on.
Right. More feedback, I'll work on that for that line item. The hangar, I'll just jump in the next one here, hangar A through D, this is not all the L brackets, but part of our hangar repair that we did in a number of hangar rows, our contractor and structural engineer identified a shortfall of the past hangar construction that led to some of the damage that we saw across a lot of the hangar rows when we had heavy snow loads on the roofs. And that is, there's an L bracket, literally shaped like an L, that attaches the roof to the beam. It's only attached on one side of the L bracket, so it lets the roof bend and move more than it's designed to do. It should be attached on both sides of the L bracket. And so this retrofit through, not all at once, but planning over multiple years, as you see here, is to begin having a contractor come in here and do the modification to those, whether adding more bolts to both sides or welding it. There's two different types of solutions to permanently attach that L bracket, but that is what's recommended by both our structural engineer for long-term modification to improve the structural integrity, and also our contractor that was doing the work at the time. We didn't do those upgrades as a change order at the time because it was another additional significant cost of change order that we knew was an improvement versus maintaining existing. So we're coming back later to revisit that, and would expand our time that we had all those hangars open and out of commission as well. Joint Finch project is between Gate 5 between Eston and Truckee. We've been talking about doing this for some time. They have plans to add a security gate behind the side of the town to section off their law enforcement vehicles from the general public. That includes a different fence. There's an area that is no fence there. There's an area that had some trees there that we asked them to remove to reduce the tumbling effect of the snow. They've done all that. Now we're working in a kind of a 50-50 fashion to put this new fence along that section of Gate 5 between us and the town boundaries.
Question for you, David, I guess. Are we going to debate any of these items after this presentation?
Yeah, we can, when
Okay.
we get into.
Absolutely looking
what-
for feedback, right?
Yeah, sure.
Or do you want to do it on the fly?
I
We
would
have
rather,
one
if,
more slide to cover on equity, then
Okay.
we'll turn it back
Yeah.
over to you to
gotta-
tackle.
think of this
Yeah.
as the clarifying questions, and then we can get into a bigger discussion. I
And
think.
then I'll just cover that. Hangar revitalization programs is the third year of that ongoing process of improving hangars row by row now, instead of ad hoc by volunteer basis. Next.
All right, this next slide, this is the equity slide that we added to hopefully just help be a guide for the money that you have and what is happening to it, the equity that you have. So this number at the very top, the 8,567,000, that's an audited number. That was your year-end equity. That included prior year's retained earnings or equity and the 2024 ending net loss, net income. So that's the net number there. And then we look into 25, what's happening with that equity. So if we take in your forecasted net income prior to reserves, depreciation, things like that, you have about $3.7 million for 2025. We don't have any reserve expenses in 25 as we didn't budget that way. So debt service is money, equity that goes out that you don't see on your operational budget that we just talked about. So we talked about the debt service. The interest portion is an operational cost. You saw that, or we've talked about that. And then the principal portion of your debt that isn't reflected operationally. So here we're showing $344,000 is going to be spent in 2025 for your principal portion of your loan. Pension contribution in 2025. This includes the regular estimated contribution that will be necessary, plus the extra that you guys have been paying for the past few years. My understanding is about 500 grand extra. That's my understanding after talking to the auditors. Capital expenses for 2025, this is $976,000. Again, this is not reflected operationally. So we wanted to show it somehow. The money's going away, right? You're spending it. So this number does not include any of the apron, the A2 project, since that's paid for by the loan. So that has been taken out of the capital expenses. So that is looking at 2025, your net effect to your equity at the end of what we're forecasting to be at the end of 2025 is an increase to your equity of about $1.7 million. So then you're carrying forward, and again, this won't, isn't perfect, but we're estimating your the forecast to be about $10 million of equity balance at the end of 25. So if you go into then 26 with the budget that we have presented, looking at your budgeted net income prior to reserves and depreciation, of course, 1.6 is what we're budgeting today in the presentation. We're taking away the reserve expense, $576,000 proposed, goes against your equity essentially, as it's not shown operationally. Debt service, again, this is only the principal portion. Interest is shown in your operating budget, 600 grand. We're assuming the same pension contribution. This is an estimate, again, based on talking to the auditors, what you've done historically. This is pulling in the capital that we just presented, the 1.174, 1.175. And then that brings down the net effect to your equity. So that if all remains as presented here, it's a decrease of about 1.4 million. So that's bringing your estimated equity down at the end of 26 to 8.9 million about. And then this next allocation method here, this is something that was in your audit report from last year. And this is a directive from a few years ago. At some point, it was directed that whatever our equity balance is, we want this percentage to be in these buckets. So those percentages, the 22%, 17%, and so forth, those are directed percentage allocations from the board, I believe.
Policy instruction. right.
Yeah, from a few years ago. So you're saying whatever our equity is, we want 22% of that to be designated for replacement reserves. We want 17% to be designated for community benefit and so forth. So that is how that allocation sits with your equity as it is now. So again, this is a forecast for 25, and then what we have budgeted here for 26. And then we wanted to add down below too, because, non-operationally, it's hard to think about what your money's doing and how it flows in and out and so forth. So we wanted to show the principal balance left for your, the executive hangar loan is about 5.2 million based on the amortization schedule I have. And then the apron A2, we just finalized that the other day, and 5.3 is the principal balance on that through the end of what they show as 2040. So those are principal dollars you'll have to spend out of equity going forward for those two loans.
Question.
Yeah.
Designated net positions year in 2026, the percentage is up there. If we're allocating 26% of our property tax to airport operations in reserves, and we decide we only want 10%, can we reduce that number for the FAA, or will forever more be at least 2.3?
Going forward, we can change the policy instruction by the allocation of those percentages. It won't change the balances that are currently in there, because those have been designated for airside, non-airside, essentially.
So if today, let's say.
So future contributions can be adjusted based on board guidance.
But can it ever be less than 2.3 million?
The allocation for future can be, going forward can be different, but the existing dollar items would remain. The balance, you can't adjust the balance. You can't move it from airside to non-airside by changing the balance percentages. That would be against FAA rules. We can't. So
Let's say.
But new money going in, we can change. All additional money we have at the end of the year goes into the community side only, not the air side.
So the bottom line is it can never be less than it is right there, but next year's allocation can be less.
Yes, that's my understanding, based on the FAA's guidance.
Need to think about that,
Right.
because from a reserve perspective, if we keep it all in community benefit, we can spend it on whatever we want.
Right.
You
But
can always
if we-
come this way, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think we should agendize something on that topic, because I'm sure it's like some big to-do.
But didn't we, for some reason, I remember we had a conversation about this, and the discussion was that, or the outcome was that the money never goes into the airside account until it's necessary. Is that true, that it stays on the community side, and then when we need to use it on the air side, we take it in there? Because otherwise, what Teresa's saying is a genuine concern, that if we put it in there assuming we're gonna need it, then we can never take it out for
Can
something
never
else.
take this money out.
But I thought we were keeping it on the community flexible side until we needed to pay a bill on the air side.
So I think Liza's getting her arms around the inflow of the tax revenue,
Okay.
particularly in the inflows, because any money we make on the airfield side has to stay on the airfield side. So we're really talking about tax dollars coming in.
Right.
So currently, when those are flowing in, those are going into specific property accounts, and we're tracking it that way. What that balance is at the end of the year and how we allocate it out, what's remaining, is what we're talking about here. So yes, we are tracking funds that are coming in and segregating those funds. How we segregate them at the end of the year is based on these percentages.
But you're right.
Yeah.
We're talking about the same thing.
Right.
If we need to hit the bank because Trump froze our money or whatever,
Right.
we can only spend.
Keeping as much property tax money on the
So we
property
should-
tax side for flexibility future is in our best interest, yes.
So I'm just saying, we should
Most
agendize
flexible.
this and do what, a motion,
Yeah.
whatever that would be. I'm sure it's like the one you have to do roll call.
You know more than me.
I forget the PI number, but we do review this. I think we,
That it stays there till we need it. That was my understanding too, which is what we would
stay
want.
segregated,
It
right?
stays on the flexible side until a building's to be paid. Yes, right.
That's on the spend, that's on the daily spend, how we spend it. This is like,
Yeah,
so I think
the end of the year segregation.
0.
Yeah.
You get
Yeah, so our
0
last
property
meeting of the
tax.
year, we typically have brought this, I believe in the past, to, or maybe it was the last time we updated the policy instruction percentages. But we can revisit this at the December meeting when we get closer to that ending balance for the year, what that looks like, and how we want to segregate any additional revenues, net revenues that we have. Net income.
A time check, we've got 30 minutes.
We are done with our portion, I believe. The reference guys there for your reference, or other folks' reference. Back to you on how we want to organize feedback guidance different than what's presented.
I got a few. Should I go first?
Go.
I looked at this up and down, and I cannot see a bottom line. What's the total amount of our budget? Closest I can get is the total revenue line, which is 18 and change. But can you just answer that for me? What is the amount of the budget this year?
What is the amount of the bottom line
Yeah.
net income, net loss?
Is it an $18 million budget? Is it a $20 million budget?
How
there's
it's
lots of-
showing,
Like I said, the only place I could find it was in the, and it wasn't presented this way, but the total budget revenue, profit, gross profit is 17,814,000 and change. So that would be my assumption, although we're gonna be negative, so it's probably closer to 20? 19?
all right, so you want the bottom, so if you want, what are we gonna make, or what are we gonna lose this year as it's presented? This worksheet in the green column shows that, so
That's
we're
not what I'm
looking-
asking, actually.
Okay.
It's the 18 million, this is an $18 million budget. You guys understand what I'm asking?
Yeah.
What is this budget? Is it 18? No, because we have 1.5 more. So it's $19.5 million budget.
The,
This
Our-
whole thing, the whole
Total
enchilada.
revenue, total expenses, right. We don't have that pulled in that format
But
here,
it
right.
makes sense,
But if we
right?
add
Tell
up
me
the-
I'm looking at this correctly. 18 million in revenue and a net loss would lead me to believe that the net costs are 19.5.
correct.
So-
Right, that's right.
Loosely a 19.5, $20
Slightly less
million
than
dollar-
this year's budget, right.
Okay, that was my first question. Anyone else want to pile on? Okay. I don't know if we're going to debate this or not, but I don't see any reason why we should pay 75 grand for Town of Truckee's fence.
What is
It's
that?
nothing for us.
I was actually wondering about that. So if you start at gate 5, how far back does $75,000 get us?
I think we're working on that exact schematic right now with them. So
Okay.
we're
And is
working-
there-
We're working on an MOU with them to define all the terms of the agreement for the fence.
And is there a plan to completely enclose the patrol vehicles?
That's my understanding of what they would like to do, yes. Of a portion of their parking area to segregate that from folks walking in and out of there. So part of it's a shared fence, part of it is our
Right.
fence responsibility to separate people from the airfield and the actual electric gate that's there on gate 5. So we do have a shared fence line with another property, so it's pretty common for us to enter into MOU about shared costs for replacing that fence.
Well, that's still my position. You guys can,
Well, I mean, I was wondering about it just as far as how it goes back, because it kind of, like arguably, we've got these gates that you can just walk around. So it's not really a security thing, it's more about keeping a vehicle off. And I'm wondering if that same thing, if we do that fence starting at gate 5 all the way back, does it actually solve a foot traffic problem, or does it only get so far back and then people just walk around it? You know what I mean? I mean, I guess it goes back to that philosophy of if the airfield is not completely surrounded by a fence.
Yeah, certainly
Is
on
there-
our side, we don't have fencing around the whole airfield, so in all of our areas around the gates, I mean, from the roundhouse, you can walk to a hangar by stepping over a curb. So it is only meant to be a limited area on that area to prevent vehicle traffic. Mostly, partly, we do want to capture stuff that blows from the parking lot into the taxiways and hangar rows. They do have dumpsters back there. Will they be there forever? I don't think so. But that helps capture some of that material that blows through there, so we do want to capture some of that as well.
Okay, so is presumably we're paying 50% of it, or was that negotiated somewhere?
For our shared fence line, we're talking about 50%.
And are our specifications for a airport fence compatible with what their specifications are for their?
We don't have an exact requirement for an airport fence, so I was fine with dealing with their requirement for their fence.
Well, again, you guys heard my objection, so you can decide.
You think we have a case there, though?
It's not our problem. We don't need the fence. We wouldn't build the fence if they didn't ask us to.
Does that match your understanding? We wouldn't build a fence unless they asked?
We would certainly want a fence to a certain fence, for the certain areas that we have high traffic areas in, we'd want to limit that. Ideally, we'd have a larger fencing plan for the airport and be picking away at that every year and creating a fencing plan or barrier plan in some way or another around the whole airport. That would be a kind of a 20-year project. This would be the most logical piece of that around a high traffic area for us and limiting that foot traffic as much as possible.
So my objection is merely we have a $1.5 million loss and a 20-year plan to build a fence. Doesn't make sense to me. You guys form your own
We've had
conclusions.
discussions about the fencing of the airport anyway. This came up many years ago in terms of, there's a significant feeling that we don't want to fence it, because the FAA came to us one time and said, we'll pay for it, a fence the whole thing, and we didn't want to do that. And we talked about it, and you were going to do some fencing with barbed wire, and did not want to do that. So it is a legit question of what sort of traffic are we talking about from the police side or the rear yard into the hangar rows? How much happens?
I mean, if I was a criminal, I'd for sure go through the police department to break in.
But, and also, we won't have fencing, like, if you think about the Gate 5, so we would have fencing going into the hangar rows, but we would not have fencing between CAL FIRE's lot and the tarmac.
How fire's on our property?
Yes, there are lots of segment of our property does not have fence currently.
Okay, so
All over the place, but in the high traffic areas where we see vehicles, we try to put some fencing and barrier plans in place. This is one of those areas, I'm suggesting this is a perfectly normal partnership between us and another public agency that shares a fence line that is reasonable and not very expensive.
I agree.
And I think, if I understand, our immediate benefit of this is just debris that's from their cardboard recycling and other things that are going on in that parking lot getting blown onto the hangar rows.
Yeah, foot traffic and debris and pedestrian and vehicle limiting factors with the fence are there. They would like a no-climb fence versus kind of a chain link fence. Seems reasonable, given their higher security needs than ours. And for a shared, rather than having two fences, one chain link and one no-climb, why not we just invest our money in one fence that meets both of our needs, so.
There's a PR aspect of it too. I mean, good fences make good neighbors, and, maybe they can help us on the website.
Not the hill I'm going to die on, but I just wanted you to
Okay.
think about
I'm
it.
ambivalent about it.
I like it.
All right, the rest has to do with the, you guys ready to move on?
Move on.
Yeah?
We're moving on.
I figured. When, Liza, will we know exactly what we get from the counties?
For property tax? I don't know that answer. I do, like I said, I got the Nevada County information. I don't know if Placer comes the same time, since I haven't been in this realm, so I'm not sure. I can
I
find
feel
out,
like it's
though.
after we have to approve a budget.
We don't know until we actually get the check, so it's always final then, and it comes in multiple payment cycles through the year, but they give us best forecast. Since I've been here, it's always come after the budget process, so we've kind of, our best guesstimate based on their best guesstimates is what we've gone with. We don't have a good guesstimate right now, that's why we had it flat.
It kind of leads into my overall thought process. I don't know how you guys feel, but a negative budget never sits well with me. And I'm not comfortable spending an extra 2 mil at the library or yet to be determined when we're running red. But I would be amenable to saying any dollar we get over the projection of property tax can go somewhere else. But I'd suggest cutting that by 2 mil. The community benefit.
So the 4 million line item to 2 million, right?
Because you
Right.
beefed it up, and I appreciate that.
Yep,
It's
just trying to
definitely
plan
something I
for
wanna
everything
do.
I'm hearing.
Something I want to do for sure, but not when our net is negative. I don't want to overspend it, but if taxes increase 5% this year, that's almost $1 million. Right there.
This is making me realize, or maybe I'm forgetting, but I had thought as part of strategic planning, we were gonna set a target for,
No, we haven't done 311 yet. That's our problem. Strategic initiatives, is that what you're going to say?
no,
Oh.
for a target holding equity balance. Like, we don't, do we have that number?
The only one we have is for reserves, is what we established, which is $2 million.
Which is
Which
an
we're-
important
we-
but different item, right?
Yeah, that's our equity reserve balance per policy is $2 million to address rainy days.
Yeah.
Unknown kind of things.
Yeah.
So that's,
So-
that's all we have right now in policy, right?
Yeah, so I think any argument, and I hear you loud and clear and agree on, I don't like running a negative budget either, but running, the decision around running a negative or positive budget, to me, is directly tied to what our target holding equity amount is. And
Meaning
don't-
we have more to spend and we can go in the negative operationally.
Yeah, if we're like, hey, we wanna have 6 million in equity, we're at 8 now, so yeah, we're gonna overspend, we're gonna have a budget that's over 2 million this year. We're gonna hit that 6 million target, or we decide, no, we want 10 holding in equity, so we need to have a budget that's 2 million less to increase
Are
our
you
coffers.
thinking about the equity or are you thinking about cash?
I'm thinking about actual cash, yeah.
I think that's what the 2 million
Cash that
is.
impacts the equity, right?
Right.
So
But when you
I'm
say
tracking what
8
you're saying, and currently that per policy is only 2 million. So you have flexibility to make decisions about $6 million roughly, of whether or not you want to spend that down next year or add to it. There's no policy we have right now that addresses that portion of it.
No, it didn't,
Yeah.
yeah. But that would be guiding.
That would be, like, you're making a conscious decision to spend more than you're making, right? A negative budget and drawing from equity, right? I understand, right? But that's what
I hear you. And
Right.
I mean, if we kept 10 mil in the bank, that's 6 months of expenses. That's what anyone should have at their house, so one would hope. I don't know. That's a whole different discussion. I'm just saying, I don't think we should increase community benefit in the budget and show a negative. Doesn't mean we can't
But I
spend it
don't-
if we
I
get
guess
it.
The point that I'm trying to make is I don't think it's a whole different discussion. I think they are directly tied. Like, if we have more cash than we need, then we can overspend for a year and give 2 million. But having more or less cash than we need is a decision that we have all made. How much we're over or under is always going to be in relation to how much cash is in the bank. Right? Do you see my point there, or you disagree with that? Because conceptually, I hear you don't want to run a negative budget, but if we had $100 million in the bank right now, there would be no concerns about being many millions over budget. Right? It is entirely in reference to how many assets we have that are accessible. How much cash? Disagree?
I'm gonna have to agree to disagree
Okay,
on this
that's
one.
fair.
I don't like negative budgets anywhere. And wouldn't it be great to have written a check for A2?
For the one who pushed so hard.
Yeah, I totally think it was the right decision, but we don't have to spend down our money by running a negative budget to give money yet to be named. I mean, the library hasn't asked us for anything. You mentioned the library. If we have 2 million extra to give, we should open it up and think about it.
Yeah, most of that 4 million I've built in the budget is based on the 5 directors here individually giving me feedback of priorities that they are thinking about for next year. So I put all the money I'm hearing in there. looking for guidance for you all on that particular line item. right? It does
This
cause us to go negative, it does draw from equity.
this
Currently,
just might be a semantics thing. I agree, like, it makes me nervous to think that we're going to allocate $4 million that we don't really know yet how we would spend, because I wouldn't want us to think that we are, especially if that gets out into the community and then we get a line of people saying, hey, you got $4 million, we'd like some of that, and then we get back into where we were at before with the agency partnerships. Knowing that it's there is great, so if an opportunity comes along and we decide that that makes fantastic sense, then we know that there's an option there. But I kind of feel the same way if we don't, it makes me a little bit nervous just to allocate a big chunk of money when we are negative and we don't have a specific rationale to the public for what we plan to do with that, until we are officially asked for that and can have that open meeting discussion and hear public input. And so I would also be in favor of keeping that at $2 million, knowing that
Or at 3.
if an opportunity comes along,
2.5.
or whatever we want to, whatever we have.
Split the baby.
And give up the extra property tax that we're gonna get.
Yeah.
What I'm looking for is previous years, because I think we've been negative in previous years. And because we have always budgeted, we haven't budgeted lean. We've always budgeted, and we've never hit those numbers, right? So we're showing $1 million in the hole, but really, we're not. Or, you
Yeah,
know,
we've
and at
never
previous
actually,
years
I
to
shouldn't
look
say
at
never,
that.
because I don't know about ever.
Yeah, but I was looking for that old data because we always budget conservatively, and we've not hit those numbers. So whether we put in 4 million or 3 million, if things come up, we want the ability to respond to that. I've heard that from everybody.
We have it.
Right.
It doesn't have to, we
You
can
just don't want
overspend
to show
the
that
budget.
number as being
Right.
negative.
I
Right.
personally would like to see it net zero or better.
Well, then my question is, the 600,000 for the pension, 500,000 of that is an extra.
I know.
And we're never going to get out from under it.
I agree with you.
So it's like, why are we doing that? There's 500,000 I just
I
found.
totally agree.
So the 500,000 isn't, that's on the equity line, that isn't on the
Yeah.
negative 1.5 million line.
Okay.
So if we reduce
Affect the operating budget.
community benefit line item by the negative number you see there to make it zero, to Teresa's point, we could do that. And then you still have the money in the bank, so you still have flexibility to make a decision later, as Dave is talking about, based on information at that time. You have a bank account, you have equity. You don't have to plan for an unknown in a budget.
I think we need to have a conversation about the decision we made 2 weeks ago to forego FAA money and look at what just assume that that's not going to change for 3 years, assuming we even have an election in 28. It could be,
You're on record,
I think we need, I would be in favor of putting more in reserves and just feel safer.
Which comes back to my previous point.
Right,
which is
exactly.
We need
No,
to decide
I
what
agree
the
with
target
you.
is
I
for
totally
reserves.
think we should have a target, and I think we have to factor in, the recent developments and the decision that we made 2 weeks ago. And, like you said, we need to have a rationale for people who hear that we have an extra million or two to put out in the community, why we're not going to do that. But I think this needs to be thought through, and I think we need to have some kind of policy around it, at least for the foreseeable future.
I agree with you. In fact, Rob and I talked about this. One of the things that scares me a little bit about our decision about the FAA money, not that I think we made the wrong decision, I think we made the right decision, is that if we don't account for the fact that we are 5-ish years away from having to cut much bigger checks than we've had to cut out here, that we put a future board into position where they have absolutely no chance or no option to discuss whether or not they want to take that money, because they have to, by grant assurances that we're already obligated to, we have to keep the airfield in good shape. And so if we, over time, if we're diminishing the amount of money that we have on hand, we might be forcing a future board to take money from the FAA because it's the only option they've got. So I do feel like that, and this is part of that like, where I'm, and maybe this is not really something that I should be too concerned about, but we forego $1.4 million from the FAA, we see a negative budget, and we plan to spend $4 million.
It was 1.4.
1.4.
Yeah.
No, we saw,
1.5 negative budget.
we didn't take 1.4 from the FAA.
Yeah.
We now see a negative budget, and we're in that same meeting allocating $4 million to community giving that has not really been identified yet. So understanding that we do have that flexibility next year to make these decisions, I would prefer to make an action that seems like we are, as Kat put, we are aware that we just declined $1.4 million, and we are aware that we are seeing a negative budget here.
So where it shows 5.038 million for community benefit, if you net out the 1.5, so we're only putting 3.5 million into community benefit. That addresses what both you're saying, so the bottom line is 0 net income. And, you know, it's flexible in the write-up in terms of if it's going to solar or the library or the fire or something else. It's open-ended.
I totally agree with that, 100%. And I do think we'll get the extra tax dollars, not a lot, but maybe mil, maybe none. But we could allocate that right now and say whatever that is, we'll put it in the pot to give. And, I mean, our fire giving might be less this year, depending on our next meeting.
Right.
Right.
So,
Rob, is there any reduction in choices if we say, let's say we have a positive budget and we pull $2 million out of community benefit? 6 months down the line, we decide we want to give $2 million to the library or some other cause. Is our decision, our decisions and flexibility changed because we haven't put it in the budget? Or
No, not at all, unless I'm not aware of a legal aspect of setting a budget. But you ultimately have flexibility through a public process to expend funds at a later point in time that we have, or you can borrow funds to do something as long as it goes through an appropriate public process. So you have all the flexibility still.
Okay.
Whether it's in the budget or not.
Okay, so then back to the board, like, is there any benefit to committing ourselves publicly to
$5 million.
$5 million in community benefit at this date?
I don't
see it.
think there is, and it makes me uncomfortable because I would rather that be a public process where people get to weigh in on exactly what we want to spend the money on, rather than feeling like you've allocated this without us knowing, like, how do we comment on that when we don't know what your plan is for it?
Yeah.
So that to me is what makes me uncomfortable about that, getting ahead of that, knowing that we always do have that option, right? It's the 5 of us are all going to be here next year. So we could make, if some opportunity comes along that's fantastic and we can bring that on an agenda item, people can come in and weigh in on that specific item.
So the net point is drop it so that it's
Net income 0,
or
coming out of community benefit.
plus 200.
Plus, or plus 2.5 million. 3.5 million. Right, if we pulled all 5 off of
I don't want
We
to
can't pull all 5 because we have in-kind stuff going on.
Yeah, there's some in-kind lands management that does cost us money. There's a scholarship dollars in there. There's an air show in there. It's all community benefit dollars.
Yeah, sorry.
STEAM stuff.
I hear you.
So some of those
But we could
ongoing
pull
programs,
four.
Boys
pull
and Girls
$1.5
Club,
million.
year
1.8.
2. Yeah. But we can do the math on that and pull it back down to a 0 net income budget to start with.
Does
see
that
what
work for
looks like.
everybody?
Yeah.
Assuming the wildfire is still a major piece of that,
Yeah, I guess.
beyond the other ones I just named, right?
Do we want to go to 0 or do we want to go to a positive number?
Because I could pull the wildfire out too.
That's my question.
I think is the biggest figure there for a decision to be made later.
In a message.
Well,
That's not, I mean, entirely fair. We did set this up and suggest that we would continue it. We
Yes.
didn't commit, but we suggested for their planning purposes.
Right.
There was only one piece. I don't know how big it is. It's questionable based on our next meeting, in my opinion.
Right.
We can talk about that.
yeah.
And, I mean, net zero is fine, or we can take the 2 mil off the top that got added. It was a nice round number, right, 2 mil? Yeah.
So we can go back and pull out all the strategic initiatives around those unspecified items that was the $4 million line item, essentially. And we could pull those out, that 4 million out.
Yeah.
And keeping the other line items that we've made commitments to around STEAM, Boys and Girls Club,
What about
Air Show.
fire? That's what I was talking
So
about.
fire is one of the ones, that's part of that 4 million, that 4 million I would take out at this point.
Is that what you guys are saying?
That's what I just heard.
I'm suggesting, Mary and I are suggesting different things. Mary is suggesting
Net zero.
net 0.
Yes.
I'm suggesting, what is the downside of pulling out 4 million? 2 for fire, 2 for library, just pull it all out. We have a positive budget.
Right, that's what I'm hearing is pull
Yeah.
the 4 out.
But I don't,
Right.
you're hearing that from me,
Send a message.
but I don't think that the board is consensus.
No, I'm not in support of that, but for what Teresa just said, the fire thing is something they have to plan for, and if they see us pull that out of the budget today, I fear we
That
get
was
into
gonna
this
be my
situation.
next question is,
Yeah.
what optics risks are there
Plus, I mean,
to our relationships?
probably doesn't look great as a public agency to take tax dollars and have 2.5 mil profit. Net zero or net 500,000.
I mean, there's an
feels
easy
good.
narrative to tell they're out building up our reserve study, we're not taking FAA money, like, that's a straightforward story, but
I'm with David. Take off the extra 2 mil.
Leave fire in.
so take off 2 mil, so we're gonna have a positive budget of 500K, roughly,
400 and change.
400.
Yeah.
450.
And Liza, quick question. How much cash do we have?
Well, it depends on the day, right?
In reserve, not operating, but in reserve.
In reserves, there's an account, I think it's in the Cal Class Bank, and it's just right around 2 million that has been set aside in a reserve account.
So everything else is operating cash. Comes
Right
in,
now.
goes out.
Yeah.
And the rest of this
Not-
balance sheet
It's
is,
the audited equity at the end of the year, last year, we have somewhere around that number now. So it's around the 8-9 million number is what we have in CDs, bank accounts, sitting there earning interest in some way or another that we're not operationally spending. So it's that net equity number is essentially cash
And there,
in
we
different
have,
forms.
and we do have more than that now because we get the property tax.
yeah, I know, but that's allocated. I'm
Yeah, so
thinking-
that's planned to be spent in the budget for expenses, payroll, those kind of things.
Right.
So it's around the $8-9 million is
In various
in
investments that
various
we have
investments that are
in-
liquid, right?
in like savings account-ish type thing, unallocated. Which we can talk about at some other point in time.
Only
Once we're done with that.
allocated in the sense that last slide we talked about in those
Right,
buckets, right?
23% of it
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
operational.
Yeah, so it's that slide and those numbers are what's essentially is cash,
Yeah.
not obligated.
And, you know, and I brought this up to you, and you're working towards it, and you're having to come up to speed really fast, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
But it is this way the budget's set up, it's all mashed together instead of an airside, landside budget. They are very distinct money, and if the FAA ever comes in, the way that it's blended in here, it's not distinct.
It's distinct in her world. These are just reports for us, presentations.
Okay, it's not distinct enough for me to know, so I can know, okay, our budget is this, but this is how much money. It goes back to what David was saying is, the money sits here, and when we need it, we bring it over here. And it goes to that reserve point of, is that 2.3 touchable or not? Because once the money comes from the property tax onto the air side, it can never go back. Anything generated on the air side, which it will never cover.
Yep.
So we need to be clear, when you go through the line items, it's not clear.
Well,
It's not. You and I can talk about it. I got it here, and it's,
I-
and we can talk about it afterward.
I think
because-
I think you're accounting for it separately, but to the $8 million in CDs and savings that we have, 26% of it is forever committed to ops.
Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's
of the
like in
current
our.
dollars, we
in-
can't change it.
In the revenue, we've got all of the Design Bar, Mountain Home, Roundhouse. That's airside money. It's not landside money, but it's all included in revenue. And expenses associated with those facilities are, it's all just in here. So it's not clear what's airside and what's landside.
Okay, well,
And I
I'll go
feel,
with you and we'll talk to Liza about it, but it makes
Okay.
sense to me.
Just to pause, we're at 3 o'clock. You had a question or a statement?
Oh, I had a statement,
Yeah,
because I
go for
wasn't
it.
able to talk over everybody.
Sorry.
I want to make sure that we have clarity over this community benefit. And so what I'm hearing from most of you, I think, is that we want a zero. We want it to zero out, pull the money out so that the budget zeroes out. And I know this is not a popular opinion, but I'm reluctant to say publicly that we're going to give 2 million to fire this year because we've never committed to it. I think it's mission creep. I don't think that we need to be funding other public agencies at that level. And I think there's need elsewhere. So I would like to see whatever number helps zero out. And that we're going to allocate to community benefit or strategic initiative or whatever. But I don't want to, I don't like to set that expectation every year that this is the amount we're going to give every year. So I'd like for that line item to include, solar or.
What if we just
Library
don't-
doesn't need any money next year. They're not going to break ground till 27 and that's only if the bond
if the bond passes.
passes, so,
Right.
so they don't need money from us in 26. But I would like for it to
400,
be a little bit more
500,
open,
600.
and not just that we're doing fire, because I think
7, 800.
we kind of got stung this year. We got sued by fire, so, who knows what's going to happen in the future.
I mean, we just are saying strategic initiatives
Right.
of 4 million, whatever that ends up being. And then if that number, because the other things in here, between pilot events, non-airport expenses, Fly Quiet, Fly Safe, Boys and Girls Club,
No, I know that those.
that adds up
those
to
aren't going-
800,000.
yeah.
That
No,
adds up
those
to
aren't going
800.
away.
So Kat, what I'm hearing, and I'd love to get consensus if this is what I'm hearing, because I think follows up what Greg was saying, is you'd like to see the 2 million in there for strategic initiatives line item, but not designated for wildfire mitigation,
Or anything.
designated for a number of potential topics to be
Yeah.
decided later.
Yes, that's what I would like to see.
Okay, but not the 4 million number, just the 2 million, right? Okay.
So
David?
So the
keep all this and
2.8.
And
just
that was,
change that to 2.
I'm hearing everybody else agreed to that?
This looks fine, it's just when, some of the previous slides, that suggestions that we could,
But
Can we keep the word
2.8
fire off of it and leave it open?
that's what I'm.
Okay.
David, what
Gonna
you
recover
mentioned
2.2.
the fire's ability to plan. I generally align with what Kat just shared, and you made a comment earlier that stuck with me, which was that we have informally or casually or whatever word you want to choose, but not formally made some we've set some expectations with fire, and that they are planning accordingly. What are those? What expectations have we set with them?
I don't think we've set any expectations. I'm not saying commit it to fire because they're expecting it from us. I'm saying that we were, and the first year we did this, we were a bit burnt because we made the decision to do this beyond the time frame they needed to contract for
They
it.
needed to plan.
So it was
Okay.
more of a, if we, whatever that amount is that we say we will allocate, making sure that we let them know so that they can plan for doing that.
And we
And what
just
I
need
was,
to make this decision, not necessarily now, but by whatever their deadline is that they can plan.
right, and
Typically for
rewinding.
the last 2 years, it's been,
Yeah, let me just finish this one last thought. Rewinding to a few minutes ago when we were talking about pulling all of it out, what my concern was is that just makes it seem like there's no this is not even an option. So if we backtrack that 4 million to 2 million and then decide
8.
as soon as we can what we want to do with that, I think that's reasonable, because
Okay.
there is no expectation. Certainly we can't encumber a future board to follow in line with what we're doing just because we're awesome.
So that sounds good. I wanted to make sure we weren't creating a problem there. So then, what I don't feel like we have spoken consistently on, and Rob's trying to get us to narrow in here, is, are we looking for him to zero this budget out, or are we looking for him to remove 2 million from community benefit? Because those are two different things.
Option 2.
Option two.
Option 2.
Okay. Mary?
Which is not to zero it out, it's to
That's
remove
2
2 million.
million.
So it would show up as 3 million,
It would-
3.03.
Yeah, community would be 3, and
So it would
bottom
go up
line
to-
would be
Up 5,
up 450.
yeah.
Bottom
That give you
line,
clarity, Rob?
It does. Thank you for that. Very
Yes.
helpful. Yeah.
Okay, do we have any public comment on the budget workshop?
Just in time.
Sorry, I had another board meeting.
So no public?
I came for the handouts.
Okay. So no public comment on that. Do we have any board member announcements?
Nope.
All right, we're not going to go over the schedule of the meeting, and motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved. Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. All right. So let's just take a few minute break. Josh, are we having a call-in for
And
the
then, yeah,
closed
we're going to
session?
kick you out.
Okay,
Got
so
here to
Lauren
go away.
needs,
And then you guys are,
We're entering closed session.
Lauren needs a few minutes to set up the computer for that, and then we
at least I
will
didn't have to print all this stuff out.
Provide it for you.
get started. Should we say 3:15 that we can?
Yes.